Right, everyone, I'm Klloo. So, first pro quest on the books, right? Which means it's story time. So, Battle Station Toowoomba. Fantastic turnout, right? So, big ups to the staff, the store, and the owner, as well as the judge, Chris, right? 37 people. That is a big event, right? Especially for Australia. So, 6 rounds, massive day, but an absolute blast of time. And of course, we had to bring Maxx. Yeah, so first pro quest, playing Maxx. Smartest choice? Maybe not, but definitely the funnest choice, at least for me. Overall, the turnout for the day was fantastic. 37 people in total, and a nice, large Aurora-free spread, right? Ranging from Florians to Katsus, right? So, yeah, lots of variety, which is wonderful to see, but also a little bit of a difficulty for a hero like Maxx, where basically I'm taking my whole sideboard, and I have to, in a sense, prepare for a whole variety of matches within those 73 cards that I'm not actively swapping in and out. But overall, two worst matchups that I would have feared for would be Azalea and Dorinthia, right? Now, when it comes to Warrior, Fang is not that big of a deal to me, right, as Maxx. Yes, the reactive play and the obvious lack of defense reactions in Mechanologist, at least as Maxx, right, is definitely a big hang up. But as Fang, it's a little bit more predictable versus Dorinthia, where, yeah, they get the counter, sure, that definitely hurts if they're taking Dawnblade. But, you know, whether it's the first swing or the second swing being really pumped, either way, generally going to be rolled over, right? And then for Azalea, just the shutdown of arrows. I mean, I'd fear Riptide too, but no Riptides at the event, sadly, right? So just an easy, nice, debilitating turn where, you know, you can't Arsenal, you can't really set up as Maxx because his ability means you have to boost. So, you know, if you're only playing one card a turn, bow. If you're remorseless, you're taking a whole bunch of life to trade. That's not that fantastic. And overall, it's just really awkward. So those two matchups were definitely the ones I'd hate to see, and I got kind of lucky. I only ended up facing Dorinthia. So overall, how do we do? Well, first match was Florian, then a Mirror Maxx, then a Dash IE, Jarl, Kano, and to finish Dorinthia. But wasn't a horrible day. We went 3-3, right? So I gotta say, first pro quest, playing Maxx, that seems fairly decent. So Florian, we lost. Maxx, Mirror, we won. Dash, lost. Jarl, we won. Kano, we won. And then Dorinthia to close out the day was a little bit less climactic, right? So it was one of the best, if not the best, local player of the store. And then she just beat me down in 8 minutes. Yeah. So yeah, that closed out the day promptly. Overall, Florian, the loss was a fatigue out, right? We ran through our deck with 3 HP left on the opponent. So generally speaking, I don't think I did anything too horrendous in that actual match. The general gist playing into fatigue that I've found for Maxx is send 3, Arsenal, send 5, send 3, send 5, send 3, right? With the wrench, of course, from hyperdrivers. So just trying to get that chip damage, and you know, it's a coin toss essentially of how your deck plays out, right? Whether or not you find the breakpoints in the cards you're actually drawing, which I've tried to do my best to, you know, streamline the deck around that. And, you know, won some games against Florian on Teleshare, lost some games, so to be expected. Now, the mirror match against Maxx was very much one-sided. I did not dead draw items, they did. So I just basically rushed them down nice and quickly. As for Dash IE, this was another fatigue loss, but I would say Maxx would need an extra like 30-some cards to move the needle enough, right? They left with 11 HP, so yeah, we just got completely controlled out. As for Jarl, it was Frost Jarl, and I'd say Frost Jarl definitely have great odds into, at least from what I've been playing with my deck, right? We have the Achilles to play around Blizzard, or we just have a nice stockpile of obviously resources and hyperdrivers to play around Frostbite. So even losing the Foundry Heart or any of the equipment pieces isn't too horrendous, I've found. So yeah, win against Jarl. Kano was another rush down. They basically drew low items. They got 1 Deja Vu, no Angie Pots. So we just beat them down before they could combo off. And then again, the Dorinthia, sadly, 8-minute loss. Just being beat down with Dawnblade, damned if you do, damned if you don't, because again, there's just not that much reactive play as Maxx, right? Now, for the deck, we'll start with equipment. So, we took Maxx, we took Banksy, of course, we took Teklo Foundry Heart, Breaker Helm Protos, Quick Dodge Flexes, Fist Pump, and then as our Arcane switches, Arcanite Skullcap, and the Achilles Accelerator. So overall, it's mostly happy with the equipment. Breaker Helm Protos and Fist Pump are still just a bit too, you know, of a a statistic anomaly, right? Whether or not you hit the hyperdrivers, breakout protos. While the block is nice, obviously you don't want to use it unless you have hyperdrivers in your hand. And generally speaking, 2 hyperdrivers, since you want the cheaper crank, in my opinion, right? So that's a little bit awkward. Fist bump. Sometimes you land it, sometimes you don't. Creates the wonderful 4 power breakpoint on Banksy, so it is nice and it is 1 block, but I think they're probably on the chopping block. As for the Skullcap and the Achilles Accelerator, again, playing around, Ocelot, Verdance, Arcanite Skullcap, I think is just really nice because you have the block and then you have the functional AB3. If you can just, manage HP, if Verdance has enough healing that it's a decent opportunity. Kano and Ocelot is a bit more rough because of the lower starting point and no life gain, right? And then the Achilles Accelerator, again, great for playing around Jarl, and just the 1 AB for Rune Chance for Runeblade. And Quick Dodge Flexes were for any aggro matches that obviously go wide. I didn't pair against any ninjas, so I didn't actually really use them that often, right? In fact, I think I took them for Maxx, but still didn't pop them, and then everyone else was still the Achilles Accelerator, just because 1 AB for Rune Chance, Action Point for Jarl, 1 AB for Kano. Actually, I did take them against the Dorinthia, but again, the match was over way too quickly, right? I think I could have used them in the final round, but then I would just die to the second Dawnblade anyway, right? Then, for the actual deck, now I ended up tweaking it, so I took the version we've been playing most recently to an armory. I did fairly decent. I ended up 6th, I think it was, right? I think it was 3 wins, 1 loss from memory. So I ended up streamlining it. Cutting out items was the big factor, because generally speaking, I dead draw items and I don't want to dead draw items. So this was the list that I was taking. Link will be in the description. If I have time to work on the update version, they'll be in the description too. But overall 14 items, so all the hyperdrivers, penetration scripts, and then a clamp press was cut to a 2 of, and then 3 ofs for everything else. I ended up cutting Gigawatt and Boom Grenades and Mechanetic Shockwave, right, were the big ones. Now, when it comes to those 3 cards, right, so Boom Grenade is essentially a 0-4 that creates chip damage, which is fantastic into fatigue, in my opinion, right? You get it on board, your opponent thinks they can block it out, so it's not that scary. Maybe they let through Banksy, since Banksy doesn't proc it, you get for another turn, and then eventually that 1 damage that gets across turns into 5. So that is kind of nice into fatigue, right? Especially when you're trying to close out the match. So I think I'd rather Boom Grenades. The Gigawatts definitely was a mistake to cut, right? The breakpoint it creates with Banksy is just fantastic. It's also versatile enough to stick on something like Heist or some of these other cards if we want to try and get something to play, like Med-X or Expedite to hit an item in hand. So Gigawatt should probably still be back in. As for Mechanetic Shockwave, I don't miss it at all, right? Dead drawing it with, again, items or some of the other expensive cards in the deck definitely felt awful. While, yes, it's great at dismantling your opponent's equipment, there is also a substantial amount of no-block equipment, right? As in 0-block equipment, not no-block as in they can't use it to block, but 0-block, which creates very, very awkward points where they just throw that out, right? And then you don't actually hit anything functional. The 2 main pieces to really try and get with it would be Scouting Flashback from Brutes or Purgatory from Runeblade, but chances are they're just going to mess you up and you're going to miss out on the damage, right? Because you have to boost first, and then you're playing this to close it out, so you're most likely playing your whole hand, and then it comes out, and you lose it anyway, right? So you haven't traded the damage in that sense, but they've got the effect off. So yeah, it's a little bit rough, right? Now, the other big cards that we take are Steel Street Hoons, Hyper Scrapper, and Infused Titanium. So this is where Mechanetic Shockwave definitely becomes a real sore point, because drawing any 2 combination of these 4 cards is awful, right? So Mechanetic and Steel Street Hoons. Well, now I have to pay 3 to play Steel Street Hoons or use Mechanetic Shockwave, and it's just this awkward point of closing out my chain and sequence where I don't get to Banksy or Hyperdriver. Hyper Scrapper, same thing. I can't really play Hyper Scrapper early. It's more of a late game closer, so Mechanetic Shockwave has to be on the table. If I miss and I don't have enough boosts, or I have awkward boosts where, for instance, I have Pulse Wave Harpoon, or I have Heist where I want to try and get shenanigans to get an item through Heist, or even Infused Titanium, it's just awkward. So yeah, I don't miss Mechanetic Shockwave, right? I've just replaced it with T-Bones essentially, and drawing 2 T-Bones is sometimes definitely enough to hit some equipment, or again, in cases where there's just that whole abundance of 0 equipment, right? You're not going to hit anything meaningful to the late game, and therefore it's less relevant, right? So yeah, Steel Street Hoons, it's an okay blue, but it has Go Again. That's the big difference between it and Magnetic Shockwave. Hyper Scrapper is a fantastic late game closer, and then Infused Titanium is basically a popper for Prism, right? So it's a nice 6. It can potentially be a 4 block with Galvanize, so I take it. Plus, again, closing out the game, a 6 is definitely nice to just send, right? Especially if I draw it in again, combination with some of these cards, goes in the arsenal. If I lose the arsenal, I don't care. If I keep the arsenal, then it's just something I can throw in the mid to late game, right? To try and close things out rather than going Hyperdrive with Banksy. Plus then there's no boost, so it's not going into fatigue. So definitely don't miss Mechanic Shockwave. Then for the items. So yeah, items are, well, bad in Maxx. So to me, they have the same perspective as Evos for Klloo, where Evos were designed around Klloo Boston's playstyle, being able to banish them and play them as instants. So items were designed around putting them into play at instant speed, right, and profiting the action point. So although Crank is nice, it is just not great in Maxx, right? Now, Clamp Press and Penetration Script, to me, are still, decent cards. Clamp Press, my opinion of it is definitely going down and down, right? I think they missed the mark, and stat-wise, it should be a little bit different. But Penetration Script, to me, definitely a standout, right? It's a 1 for 3 yellow, so essentially on rate in most cases. And then if you can prolong it, it's fantastic value. Hyperdrivers, we're Maxx, we want Hyperdrivers, so yeah, they stay. But overall, items still definitely feel awkward. You can't take too many, because then you just have really awful turns, right? You can't. So if you dead draw items completely, you can't Maxx. You can wrench, sure, but you can't Maxx. So you lose that value, right, with stockpiling resources and salvaging a bad turn. And again, in most cases, items were built around instant or prolonged use, and Banksy only salvages one of them. So yeah, that's a loss to me, right? So Clamp Press, stat-wise, my opinion would be it should have been a 1 cost for 2, right? Or it should have been a 0 cost for a +1, or at its 2 cost, it should have been +3. Because the other real awkward thing that I find with Clamp Press is you take Fist Bump, and then you hit Fist Bump when you put Clamp Press out, rather than when you don't, and you turn your 5 into a 6, and it doesn't matter, because now your opponent's still blocking with 2 cards, and there's just no value there whatsoever. So yeah, I think as a +1 would have been fine. Again, it still creates that awkward breakpoint, and it could have really benefited from the lower cost point, because otherwise your turns are a little bit awkward. They definitely, banked around a whole plethora of hyperdrivers, and just it misses too often for me to really like it. But Clamp Press is still decent. Penetration Script, again, is a standout card. Now, when it comes to the hyperdrivers, so Breaker Helm Protoss, right? I want to love this card. Same with Fist Bump. But again, generally speaking, they are just statistical chances, right? You have to have the right hand in order to use it, which means it's not something you can do proactively, which means it's definitely devalued in relation to just taking other headpieces with more substantial block. Same with Fist Bump, right? When you want it to matter, you can't control it. So yeah, that's awful, and it means it should probably be cut. So if we cut Breaker Helm Protoss, we can cut blue hyperdrivers. If we cut blue hyperdrivers, we cut Fist Bump, because now we're down to 6, right? So overall, for Breaker Helm Protoss, I think the easy switch is Crown of Providence, right? And then when High Seas comes, if it does what it looks to do, which is just create, draw meta, then Balance of Justice comes back. Heavy Industry Surveillance is also a nice choice, although I still like it. I still like Crown of Providence, again, getting the extra card remaining in charge as an aggro deck, since again, I've tuned the deck to be mostly aggro, so we stick at 1 to 2 hyperdrivers, and we just dump our hand most turns, right? So yeah, either Crown of Providence or Heavy Industry Surveillance. As for Fist Bump, and Cog works base arms appeals to me slightly, right? So it does allow you to pump the wrench, right? So it's your next Mech-Knowledge attack, gets +1, so you can create that 4 breakpoint, which is definitely nice. Again, it's devalued with Clamp Press because a 6 breakpoint over a 5 breakpoint doesn't really matter too much when it comes to power, right? So I do kind of like it. It's a shame it has no block, and I don't think it's worth taking Evos. Although, potentially you can take the Maxx Evo set. I forget what it's called. It's the Breaker set, right? Yeah. So that's a little bit nice, but also not too fantastic. The Evo, Recall, is it? I don't think it's called Recall. The blue one that came out that deals arcane damage. No, it doesn't deal arcane damage. It just deals 1 damage. It's also seemingly nice, right? It's a nice little ping, plus it's blue, so you can cycle it. Otherwise, just Heavy Industry Ram Stop is more defense, would appeal to me more than Fist Bump, right? The pay is a little bit awkward, because again, we're aggro, so we don't really want to lose cards to it. So the other option would be Goliath Gauntlet as a way to pump, again, something like Heist, or just Throttle and Fused Titanium for just a big push of damage. So yeah, I definitely think Breaker Helm Protoss, Hyperdriver, Fist Bump gets cut, which again, is where we go back to Broom Grenades and Gigawatt swapping in. It's because again, at 14 items, I think it's comfortable enough that you don't. It's going to be a very, very slim chance for you to actually hit 2 item hands, right, and have that awkward point. So I think 14 to 15 or 16 around, again, 1/4 of your deck, although again, we take 73 cards, is absolutely fine. Now, as for overall, right, again, we went 3-3, so not horrible, right? Average. Maxx with Banksy is definitely a fun deck. I very much enjoy the playstyle. Obviously, Maxx does not compare to other current mech heroes, right? So Dash, i.e. being opened up to just control and not taking boost, has definitely worked wonders, right? As for IO, just much, much better item economy, right, than Maxx. Klloo is still just Klloo with Evos. It works sometimes, it doesn't work some other times, right? So it is what it is. But when it comes to Maxx, it's just so rough, right? You're paying 3 to swing with a 3 on most turns. Because, again, you take too many items, it just lessens your power overall, right? You take too few items, and you have to rely on Maxx to hyperdrive, right? Now, this does get salvaged by Klloo Foundry Heart a little bit, but generally speaking, right, you consider it a 3 for 3. That's storing 1 to 2 resources if you land the Banksy and you get the Steam counter, right? That's not great. So I really, really wish we get a retune of Maxx, right? Either as is, and his ability just needs to be create a hyperdriver. This costs 1 more for each hyperdriver you control, right? So if you have 1 on board, it costs 1. If you have 2, it costs 2, right? Or even if you want to start it at a 1 and still do that, I think that would still be significantly better than the 2 costs, right? Or Steam counters. It should be 3, because in most situations, you are definitely cranking it, right? We don't have the action points anymore. We don't have high octane. We have barely any other ways to cheat action points. So generally speaking, either he needs a retrain of high octane for Maxx, or Maxx needs to be changed, right? And I'd rather Maxx change than high octane, because then, you know, it still just becomes a 3 in a 70 card deck, right? So yeah, as for the Armory deck, I do think it definitely missed its mark. It was obviously designed prior to high octane being banned, and it just is very, very conservative, right? So Puffer Jacket not hitting the token hyperdrivers is absolutely abysmal, right? Doesn't do anything for everyone else. They don't have a way to create token hyperdrivers, so it's just enabling Maxx to have those 3 Steam counters, crank 1 instead of 2, so that you salvage and you save the resources you spend into it, would make it definitely a contender against Klloo Foundry Heart. Otherwise, it's just way too slow, because again, you have to hit 9 cards within your deck, right? And you're only not going to hit all 9 because they'll boost away. So yeah, Puffer Jacket, want to love it, let down. Twin Tech Charging Station, same thing. I want to love it, but that 2 block in, again, a hero that does not have either high block cards, right? There's, I think, 2, 1 4 Firewall, 1 5 with Galvanize, and then just Galvanize in general, right? So I understand from the stat perspective of just cards in general why Twin Tech is a 0, right? That gives +3, and is therefore 2 block because it can generate a resource. But generally speaking, it doesn't quite work in Maxx, right? Because, again, you draw it too early, awful, right? Can't really get rid of it because you want to keep your boost cards in hand because it's only 2 block. As for Construct Bankbreaker, again, I've said this before, but my big issue with this card is that it has to be all 3 hyperdrivers, right? So essentially you're clearing your board to set up Bankbreaker, and yes, you get a decent chunk of charges, 4 charges, but generally speaking, it feels awful to clear your board of hyperdrivers to go into Bankbreaker, right? Because you've just lost all the resources you've invested. You've also had to play, in my opinion, more conservatively. So I really wish it was any number up to 3 and you could pick, and that might have made it a little bit better. It's still not as great as Banksy because you really want to rely on the Steam counter. It is essentially inbuilt drains, right? Which makes it, again, better, not great. And then Clamp Press, right? The stat line, I can't get behind. I get that it's blue, and again, it's the whole correct stats versus functional stats for the hero they're in. Wrenches are still only a Maxx thing, so Clamp Press as is, just it doesn't compensate for underdog starting points of Maxx, right? So I'm really enjoying Maxx, and that makes me think I will really enjoy Puffin, because she appears to just strictly be better Maxx, being rewarded for cranking, whereas Maxx is just on pace for cranking, right? The other big issue for Mech that I would like to see resolved is again to do with how they can react and block, right? So I really, really wish Galvanize was a reactive trigger. So instead of being when this defends, this is while this is defending, you may. So at any point you can Galvanize and buff its block. I think that would have been a great amount of flexibility to add to Mechanologist rather than, again, destroying the item prior to your opponent sticking on attack reactions. Would definitely shore up that floor, and they still wouldn't be great into Warrior or Fatigue or Big, right, with pummels and all the other reaction stuff. So it's just something I'd like to see, or some variant of that I'd like to see. Otherwise, again, they just sorely lack block. We have Firewall as a 4 block, not even a defense reaction, and Cognition Field as a 3 block that can become a 5 block. But again, a block, literally just a block, no defense reactions, right? And while Golden Sky Warden for Puffin, definitely going to make Galvanize better, being the fact that we can destroy multiple items, give it multiple block, but then also be rewarded if we're hitting those golden cogs, is definitely a nice sign. But overall, I really wish it just Mech had some reactive focus, right? Again, it works wonders in Dash IE. So yeah, that's what I'd like to see. Obviously, it needs to be not excessive and sparse, and probably just on point, not 4s, 3s, but still something nice, right? Could even be 2s with Galvanize, I guess, because then at least you're playing as a defense reaction, so you're galvanizing at the defense reaction stage, right? Not, again, proactively. So yeah, overall, I am enjoying Mech a lot more than I ever thought I would, right? It's one of the classes that was on my I probably will never touch list, but yeah, definitely enjoying Maxx, definitely going to continue tinkering with the deck, and then yeah, basically probably try it as a 1-for-1 with Puffin before just leaning into Puffin with better items and better things. But other than that, wonderful progress. How'd yours go? Let me know. Hope you enjoyed. See ya!